Hi there everyone, and welcome to Flipping Heck Business, Flip Learning for AQA A-Level Business Studies. Now this is for Unit 4, Decision Making to Improve Operational Performance, and this is video number 1. Now in today's video we're going to be covering key features of operational management, key operational objectives, importance of innovation, influences on operational objectives, and added value. So when you're doing any of your 25 mark questions or any of the sort of larger questions like 16, 20 or 25, then make sure that you are linking operational objectives. Now operational objectives will link with every other type of objective. So you've got all the corporate objectives, main objectives we learned about in the first unit, HRM objectives, so any of the human resource management ones, which will be unit 6, financial, which is unit 5, marketing objectives, which we've just done, which is unit 3. It also links to efficiency and productivity as well as capacity management. Now, what are we talking about when we say operations management? So what we're really saying is operational objectives are things like the specific detailed production targets set by an organization to ensure that its overall company goals are achieved. So really, when we're talking operations management, we're just sort of saying a fancy way of making stuff. Right, so it's the way that a company would actually produce the items that it does, or produce the services that it does. Right, now operational objectives are just how the company actually gets there. Now it's usually so when we look at operations management, then we're kind of looking at coordinating their supply chain, ensuring quality, operate efficiently, manage all of their resources correctly, and then finally add value as well. Now all of these need to link together, and that's what operations management is all about. It's all about trying to get the most out of what you are actually doing. So what we're talking about when we're talking about operational management as well is the transformation process. So this is transforming inputs such as raw materials, energy, material, technology, people, information, finance into a finished output, which is your products, goods and services. Now, the transformation process itself is actually how they develop it through. So it's the machinery that's used. It's the processes that are actually used to create the products themselves. It's everything that's kind of in between, getting the materials and actually sending something off to retail. Now, we look at the different operational objectives of things like quality, costs, etc. These will be in the next slide. So the transformation process itself describes what happens inside the business. This is where the value is added. So in other words, it's like where you are able to charge extra from the inputs that you get to the output that you can sell to make a profit. So like I said before, the main operational objectives that you will actually see will be things like quality, costs and volume, flexibility and efficiency, environmental objectives, innovation, speed of response, and then dependability. Okay, so quality is one of the most important challenges facing any business because the markets nowadays are more competitive. There are a lot of companies out there who are producing similar items that are taking their own side of the market share. Now, customers also are a big factor here because they are much more knowledgeable about what goes on in the process of creating a product because they see so many different types. They're much more demanding, so they're demanding more and more better quality goods, and they're prepared to complain about quality. So it used to be that people would just sort of go, right, okay, well, I'll never go there again. Well, actually, a lot of people now are able to share information about poor quality, such as via email or social networks. So they are much more likely to actually complain themselves instead of just walking away. Now, there is a set that a sort of marketing idea that if you have good customer service, then you're most likely to tell 3 people. Whereas if you have bad service, then you're most likely to actually tell 9 people. So it is very much in a business's reputation image to actually make sure that they are giving good customer service and good quality. So if a business can actually develop reputation of high quality, then it may be able to create an advantage over its competitors. And also it could be that it could start charging more as well. So objectives are likely to involve sort of maintaining or improving levels of quality. For example, it could be 95% of products last 5 years or longer. depending on like what the product actually is. Reduce the number of complaints in a month. How reliable, how often something goes wrong, like the average lifetime use. What level of customer satisfaction there is, the customer loyalty, so like how much of your company is repeat business. These are all factors that play through quality. Another objective is cost and volume. So we need to make sure that every business is cost effective, right? So many firms aim to kind of cut costs, especially if they're competing on price, right? Then if they're looking at, right, okay, well, how much is like our competitors selling at? Okay, can we actually reduce that down a little bit? If you think back to pricing strategies, then you know a lot of the sort of price strategies around like do base around competitors. Then there could be the traditional method of cost effectiveness is unit cost. So total cost divided by total number of units. Now, if you can get your unit cost down, then it will automatically increase your profit depending on how much your retail volume is. So a business with the lowest unit costs is in a strong position to be able to compete by being able to offer lowest price or make the highest profit margins, right? If you can beat the average in the industry, then that means that your company is going to do much, much better. That's where our economies of scale comes in, which is something we'll be looking at soon. So a few examples are such as productivity and efficiency. So, you know, number of units per week or per employee. The unit cost per item, contribution per unit, or the number of items produced, so over a time period or per machine. So another objective is efficiency and flexibility. Now, this is where businesses need to be able to actually react to what a customer wants. So vary the amounts of goods or services so that the volume doesn't exceed demand, or vice versa. Right? Efficiency is then like making better use of resources in order to reduce costs and increase profit. So capacity, labor, and capital productivity, which are two areas that we're going to be looking at next. Look at how effective the assets of the business are actually being utilized. So are we using enough machinery? Do we need all these warehouse spaces? And then efficiency and flexibility are key determinants of unit costs, because it's kind of at this stage where you look and go, right, okay, so how much actually are we spending? How big are our variable costs? And that's the sort of main area that they hit. So a few examples of these would be things like labor productivity, so output per employee, units produced per production line, sales per shop, output per time in period, so potential output for a week on a normal shift basis, potential output assuming certain levels of capacity utilization. Capacity utilization, which is something we're going to look at in the next video, which is the proportion of potential output actually being achieved. Are you achieving 100%, 90%, 110%? You can actually achieve more. And then order lead times, the amount of time taken between receiving and processing an actual order. Next, we've got environmental. Now, this is an increasingly important objective, just because there's a lot of pressure from customers and governments to actually like make sure that your company is operating at a far like safer level. So businesses face a lot more stringent environmental legislation. So think about like minimum recycling laws, anything to do with sustainability, use and manage of water supply. Is there like any kind of CO2 reduction goal? And like, you know, are you building something that's actually going to like last if the climate itself does change? And of course, then like, are you actually enhancing biodiversity potentially as well? So customers increasingly base their buying decisions on firms that take environmental responsibility seriously. So a lot of people will stop actually buying a product if their company is proven to be actually not environmentally friendly. A lot like things like you know, the orangutans with palm oil at the minute, destruction of rainforest, the amount of pollutants that are going into the air. These all make a big difference to in people's minds. So examples would be things like use of energy efficiently, proportion of production or packaging that is recyclable, compliance with waste disposal regulations, so proportion of waste to landfill, and then supplies of raw materials from sustainable sources, like so that it's not just destroying the planet. Next thing that we're looking at is innovation. Now, this is all about putting a new idea or approach into action. So innovation is commonly described as commercially successful exploitation of ideas. So think research and development. So in like the example below here is invention. So invention is formulation of new ideas from products or services, and that is the very first telephone. That's the one that Graham Alexander Bell used. Now, innovation is practical application of new inventions into marketable products or services. So down below, you've actually got the Huawei flip phone that's coming out in a couple of months. So you can see that you know from that basic telephone, which is just this big clunky wooden thing, we're now at the stage where we're developing tablet size flip phones that actually like have bendable screens. So we've taken the invention and we've innovated it. Now, when we think of innovation, we actually think of like two different types. There's product innovation, which is launching new or improved products or services onto the market. Now, these are the first mover advantage. This is where you are the very first company to actually doing this. You've got a new product that's going out there. No one else is doing anything else. This allows you to then charge at higher prices and will make you more profitable. There's a lot more added value because you've got people who are building their loyalty, you've got the early customer loyalty, the innovators, the early adopters. You've got the enhanced reputation as an innovative company. You've got public relations, loads of news coverage, and then you'll start off with the basic, like the huge section of the market's share. Now, think Apple did this when they brought out the actual iPhone. Before then, all phones were like just sort of bricks. They were buttoned. There wasn't a touch screen, or there were flip phones. There wasn't a lot of access to the internet. There certainly wasn't any opportunity to watch video or TV or anything like that on them. Well, they came in and they produced something brand new, a new product, right? And when it came out, that's what they got. They got all of these people who are now dedicated to iPhone as opposed to any other company. They've got like a huge idea that people still believe that they're like the biggest mobile telephone company in the world, when in reality they're third under Samsung and Huawei at the moment. So they did really well in producing it. But then we've also got process innovation, which is finding better or more efficient ways of producing existing products or delivering existing services. So this would be things like reducing your costs, being able to improve the quality, more responsive customer service, greater flexibility, and therefore that will lead to higher profits, which is why Samsung were able to actually like take over a little bit more. They took the product that iPhone had brought out, they copied a few of the ideas, and then they innovated further, and they actually stretched themselves a lot further, so that now they are the ones who are producing a lot more innovative ideas, where iPhone tends to be the one trying to catch up. Right, two more objectives are speed of response. So that's the speed that the business can operate is actually very important. This means that decreasing production time, decreasing waiting time, and getting new products to the market more quickly are very, very, very important for a company. Now, this is very closely related to efficiency and flexibility. So how quick you actually get your product from one place to the other. Next objective is dependability. So customers need to depend on a business, right? And businesses need to depend on their suppliers. So if a store always has items in stock, then customers are much more likely to go to that shop than one that doesn't, even if the products are more expensive, because they know that when they go there, they're going to get the item they want. There needs to be a reliable businesses basically can charge more for goods or service than those that fail to meet the needs and expectations, like I just said. Right, so that's all the operational objectives. Now, the main sort of ways that we look at influences is internal and external. So internal influences, things that the company has a little bit of control over, is things like corporate objectives. So as with all functional areas, corporate objectives are most important internal influence. Once the corporate objectives have been set, then it's up to the functional areas, so marketing, finance, HR, and operations, to then achieve those corporate objectives. So you've got to make sure that the operation objectives complement them. So, e.g., higher productivity capacity does not conflict with corporate objectives like lower unit costs. So then we're looking at finance objectives. So these objectives will depend on significant investment and cost. So the financial position of the business, so like, is it profitable, is there cash flow problems, is there liquidity, and then directly affect those choices that are actually available. So if, it would be very nice if you could just hire in more staff, but if you haven't got the money to do that, then you can't. Human resources objectives. So these are especially for the service businesses in particular, the quality and capacity of the workforce is a key factor, right? So actually having well paid and well trained staff is very, very important. So targets for productivity will be affected by the amount of investment in training and the effectiveness of an actual workforce planning. So having the right people in the right place doing the right job. And then marketing issues. So nature of the product determines the operational setup. So if you need to change your marketing mix, particularly the product, then it may place strains on operations, especially if promotion is relatively inflexible. So how you actually are putting your product out there, what kind of product you're making, like whether you need to do product extension, life extension on the product life cycle, then that will affect how you're actually operating as a company. External influence. So external influences are things like economic environment. So this is very, very crucial. So sudden or short-term changes in demand or impact on capacity utilization and productivity. Changes in interest rates impact on the cost of financing capital investments in operations. So if interest rates change, then you are less likely to borrow money if it goes up. If interest rates go down, then you might be more likely to borrow and actually invest in making your company much more efficient, right? And also things like Brexit and everything come into play here as well. Competitor efficiency, flexibility. So if you've got more competitors and they're coming out and producing better quality items, then you're going to have to try and match them. Technological change, also very significant. So if the products where the product life cycles are short, innovation is very, very important, and it can make the difference between what you're actually producing now and what you're going to be producing in the future. Mobile phones being an example where they reinvent them every year and do a serious overhaul every sort of 2 to 3 years, and all of those processes need to be put into place. If you're making a sudden foldable phone, well, you need to have the actual facilities to do that. Then you've got legal and environmental change, so greater regulation and legislation of the environment places new challenges for operations. So if you've got any kind of new laws that are coming in around CO2 emissions, etc., then you need to be able to actually put into play something that will match those laws, otherwise you could face fines. Right, next thing we're going to talk about is added value. Now, added value is basically where you take your raw materials and then you are able to do something with them to then allow you to sell a product, right? So it's where you actually increase the difference between the cost of the raw materials and the price the customer pays. So usually we're thinking about making it more environmentally friendly, or giving quicker speed of response, making it more dependable, making it last longer, will mean that you can put your prices up because people are expecting there to be that kind of level of service and they're willing to pay for it. So it's usually achieved by increasing the selling price of the product, reducing the costs of the raw materials. Now, customers will pay for quality, right? So if it's quality, great, they will take more. But like I just said, it can come down to other factors as well. Now, the way that we actually work out added value is sales revenue minus the costs of the bought in goods or services. It is that simple. So sales revenue minus costs. Same way of kind of looking at profit at a basic level. So there are 5 common methods of production, and we're going to look at all of these in following videos, but just so that you understand them here. So we've got job production, which is production of one-off items by skilled workers. So think like wedding cakes. Now these are usually best for improving quality is what you would be looking at here. Then you've got flow production, so mass produced on a continuous production line with a division of labor. So this could be car manufacturer. Right. Now they would try really there to try and increase their efficiency, their dependability and the speed of response. Batch production, so these are production of batch items of identical items. So it could be in the clothing sector where they'll produce a season's worth of goods. Now here it would probably be best for improving efficiency, dependability and speed of response. Then we've got cell production. So this is where you would have everything divided into sets of tasks, each completed by a different workforce, or work group, sorry. So this could be, again, we could look at like other areas of car production where you would have people who are just on the engine side of it, and they would produce the engines like in one country, and then maybe in another country they would do all the painting of bodywork, and then in another company they would fit them all together, and that would be cell production because it's spread all around. Doesn't need to be by country, it can be within the actual area like they are as well, so it can be on the like work site. Now they would probably go for improving quality as well as job production, so you can see the similarity there. And then finally we've got lean production, which is basically streamlining a process with waste as a minimum. Waste of not just resources and goods, but also time. And usually it's best for improving environmental and efficiency objectives. Okay, thank you very much for watching. So this was the first video in the operations unit. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications, and video 2 will be following very shortly.